Grace and peace. Good evening. God bless everybody. Come on. Good to see you all. Welcome to um the Remnant Survivor broadcast. We are live tonight. We are excited tonight. We have a wonderful guest tonight. And so I want you to do me a big fat favor. Please share this with as many people as you can. Tag some people, amen, that you can and know. They don't want to miss this tonight. I know people get busy. Life is what it is. But you want to get as many people as you can in this conversation. This is, I believe, to be life-changing, life redirecting. We're going to hear some amazing things from an amazing person whom God has certainly spared for such a time as this. And I'm honored. I am elated. I am absolutely. I'm so blessed to be able to have this conversation tonight. And I'm asking all of you, amen, as we build our audience tonight, please share, please like, please tag somebody, everybody you know, your children, young ladies, young men, some that may be challenged in their walk, in their devotion, in their just in life. And I believe that this is going to help them navigate through and help them to see a much better way. Amen. So again, let me just give you some backdrop as to what we're doing. I see some of you. I'm going to acknowledge some of our guests here with us tonight. I see my wife is on. You know, I got to talk about my girl. So she's on tonight. Good to see you. Lady Gay Carr, God bless you. Good to see you. Elder Dozer, God bless you. Good to see you. Vonda Clark, good to see you, sweetheart. Good to see you, Lady Yates. God bless you. I see you. Amen. Deaconess Barrett, God bless you. I see you. And if there's any more that may be on, let me get started over here on Instagram. Here we go. Let's go. So I want to, and on YouTube, I can't see who's on YouTube, but we are streaming on 3 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So please, those of you who are on these platforms, please share them with as many people as you can. Tag, share. I want you to hear this from the very beginning. I want you to be able to experience this conversation. Again, my name is colleague William Chris III, and I am an apostle in the Lord's Church. I am the senior pastor of Church for All Nations. I've been doing ministry for the last 37 years. I've been preaching since I've been 19, and I've been pastoring for almost 30 years. So I'm excited about the life. I've been doing prison ministry, street ministry, been really engaged in ministry. I see Lady Holmes is in the chat as well. Please share, y'all. Listen, you want to hear this great, tremendous woman of God. Sometimes when I listen, hear her story and our conversations that we had regarding this time of platform, it just blew me away, you know, and I know her. So I just didn't know all that she's been through. And I know her husband and I are very good friends. My brother, Apostle Holmes, my brother, my dear brother. Kevin, good to see you, man. I see you out there. He's my good brother. And so we certainly we have we talk all the time, and this is going to be amazing. They are a tremendous blessing and a tremendous team in the kingdom of God. They're doing a great work in Waterbury and also global, but she's going to talk about all these things tonight. So get yourself settled, get yourself settled, right? Get yourself settled. And if you have any questions, I want you to ask these questions. If you have any questions, wait to the end. She's very intelligent. She well clear on who she is. So you're going to really enjoy her. You're really going to enjoy this time that we're going to share tonight. So let's get into it. I'm not going to hold it longer. It's about 8:14 now. And I know people got great plans tomorrow night for their Valentine's. So I don't want so let's get into it tonight. I'm going to bring her on. Pastor, excuse me, I want to make sure I do this right. Attorney Mary Holmes. I want to bring her on here. Hold on, let me get her situated. Her mic, there she go. Her mic is there. You go. Okay, here we go. Grace and peace, woman of God. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. I'm so excited that you're here tonight. We've been trying to do this for the last couple of weeks, and our condolences when we heard the news regarding your brother. We were all in prayer, and it really touched us, and we kind of talked about that for a while, and certainly glad to see that you're getting through that. Amen. And certainly we're praying for you. Again, our condolences for you and your family and all that you go through. But God bless. Welcome to the platform. Welcome to the podcast. Let's hear from you. How you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling good. You know, it's been a couple of weeks.
I'm sure.
The process of sending my brother home and sending him off right has been bittersweet because the suffering is over. But at the same time, of course, we miss him. So I'm just grateful for God's blessings, even in the midst of it, just being able to still have gratitude while saying goodbye. That has been a tremendous blessing for our family to have that grace to say goodbye. So thank you so much for the condolences. Thank you for extending the postponement so that we can get this done. I know that people are going to be blessed. I have a ministry of transparency. God has always given me that open door and that window to be able to share my story in such a raw and real way so that people can relate to it and be able to glean from that and know that there's hope beyond trauma. So thank you so much for having me tonight.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, my regards to my brother. And certainly we thank God for you. Your ministry and your life and what you guys are doing is just so encouraging and inspiring on so many levels. Sometimes you don't realize how many people are watching. Like sometimes the whole world is watching, and they're watching how you are matriculating and what you're doing and all the stuff that you're doing. They may not comment, they may not say much, but people know what's going on, and they see you. I see you, and I know if I see you, there's a whole lot of people who see you. So we're excited tonight. We have been, just so you know, we've been having these conversations weekly, and it started off with a friend of mine by the name of Calvin, who attempted to unalive himself, and we all grew up together, and so he wanted to tell his story, and so from then on, I've been getting, these responses, and I thought about you. I was like, I was sitting out, my wife and I were talking. She said, who are you going to bring on next week? And I said, I don't know, but the Lord's going to put somebody in my spirit. And like probably the next day or so after that, boom, you dropped right in my spirit. I was like, oh, Lord have mercy. So I reached out to you, and you were just so willing to do it. And I'm again humbled. I'm grateful because I'm glad that we can help do what we're about to do tonight. I've been praying about this, and I believe God's going to do some amazing things tonight in somebody's life. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so let's get to it. This is kind of how I do it. I start from the beginning. I'm going to ask all of you that are sharing, that are participating, please share and be engaged. reach out to your loved ones, reach out to your children, your daughters, your sons, those people who can hear this story and maybe perhaps get another way of looking at things. And there are some people who may really be, at a state in their life where they feel like it's over, and just feel like it's time to give up. But I believe that tonight, this is going to help them see that it is not over. So, how do I refer to you? I say my sister Mary, attorney, Lady Holmes. I don't know how to, but listen, let's start from the beginning. Let's start from the very beginning. Let's start from, your family dynamic, the home you were raised in, who was in the home, and let's take it from there and let's walk all the way to today.
All right, absolutely.
Let's do it.
I was born and raised in Connecticut, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, to be exact. But we also were raised in South Carolina, in the country. So part of my childhood was spent in the city up north, but then we moved to live with my grandparents when I was in like the part of kindergarten, first and second grade. So I'm a country girl at heart because that's just my roots. I'm talking about growing up in the woods, growing up in my grandparents' house where you can see everything from lizards and snakes in the house to, roosters and chickens outside up the road. My uncle had the cornfield, and my other uncle had the cows, and another one had the chickens, and we had the pigs, and we had the watermelon plants and the blueberry patches and the blackberry patches and all of that stuff, and peaches galore because it's South Carolina. And one thing that I remember growing up vividly is that we had a huge sense of family. Like it was close knit. Lots of cousins because I had 11 aunts and uncles. And so raised around a lot of family. And unfortunately, you don't see that happening a lot nowadays where, the families just seem to be dispersed because even in spite of social media, that we're just not as close knit. But when I was growing up, we were close knit. But even in that crowded environment, while you had the good times, there was also the downside to being surrounded by so many people growing up. And so that left room for the predators in the family, the situations that get overlooked or swept under the rug. Because one thing that I really try to break people free of that mindset of what goes on in this house stays in this house. And as a child growing up with that mentality, you're afraid to tell, you're afraid to talk about what you're going through because number one, you think everybody's going through it. You tend to think everybody's been molested. And unfortunately, most women have been either sexually assaulted, molested, inappropriately touched, whatever the case might be. Most women, unfortunately, have experienced something like that. And for me, it started when I was just 4 years old. And so from the age of 4 up until my early childhood, I was experiencing this childhood molestation to where I thought it was normal. I thought it was something that I was a willing participant in, but I was too young to understand that I wasn't old enough to give consent. I wasn't old enough to understand what was being done to me. I wasn't old enough to even be able to comprehend. And even as a young teenager, I still wasn't able to comprehend what happened to me. And so I started to act out as a young girl, exhibiting these rebellious behaviors. So by the time I was 14 years old, I was pregnant for the first time.
Well, okay, so let's talk. Let's talk about this. No. Let's do it. Let's do it. So, who, if you want, what I mean, you can tell me if you're comfortable. Who was it? A relative? Was it a neighbor that first violated you?
Older male relative.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said that was plural?
Older, just an older male relative, one.
Okay. So and of course this transpired, and during this time, like you said, you thought this was kind of normal, right? Because you were 8 years old. Were you saying 8 or 4?
Started when I was 4.
And you recall that all the way back to 4. That trauma, my God.
Yeah, the reason I know I was 4 is because it was before I finished. It was before kindergarten, so it started before I even got into like really finishing up kindergarten. And so by the time I was like in 3rd grade, I was exhibiting behaviors. I was doing things that no little girl should even be aware of doing, So it was like I grew up fast. And unfortunately in my family, there was a lot of people who had experienced the same things. And it was this open secret. So it was something that those that we knew about, there was nothing done. So to those of us that did not talk about it early on, we thought, well, if we say something, nothing's gonna happen anyway. And so it was very normalized in the family.
You know, when I first and that's interesting you say that. That's because again I could share that I was molested too, right? So, but when I became an adult, that's when I began to. I haven't really dealt with it until later on in my years, but I remember when I had this conversation with a therapist, and she was my pastor at the time, and she said like at the time my wife then had been violated, and we were kind of dealing with that, like what's going on with this, and she said something to me I never forgot, and this is kind of what you were saying. She said it's classic. It happens all the time, and I was like, what? Like it was like, and just to hear you say that tonight, it's like again, I'm like, wow, like it's like one of these open secrets, right?
Right.
My God. So go ahead. Let's.
Yeah. Even when I share my story and I talk about it in different platforms, whether it's church environments, whether it's different women's conferences or women's events, each time I speak, it's like when I get off of that stage or I get out of that pulpit, I'm bombarded with women who are letting me know they went through the same things or similar things. And a lot of times they are craving, they really want to know, like, how did you get the courage? Like, how did you get the courage to speak out? Because a lot of people are suffering in silence. They think that it's not as widespread, or if they know that it's widespread, they still haven't yet they still don't have the courage to talk about what happened to them because of the fear of backlash from other family members. And it's crazy to even think about it, because that is the norm, where if you speak about it, chances are either you won't be believed, or even if you are believed, you'll be silenced, or even if you are believed and not silenced, you'll see that people still embrace those who have inflicted the harm. And that can be very confusing, especially for a young mind, even for an adult that is opening up about something that happened to them so early on. It can be re-traumatizing and very triggering when adult family members try to shut you down, shut you out, shut you up, or discourage you from speaking because they don't want the family's dirty laundry being aired. And so that's exactly what happened to me. But I had the courage to talk about it and write my story in my first book, because first and foremost, I didn't go to all of my family members. I just went to my sisters. Those are the only ones that I wanted to make sure I had. That I didn't even go to them for approval per se. I just went to them just to give them the heads up and a courtesy. And when I had the support of my sisters, I knew that no matter what other family members may say, I was okay with being open and sharing my story, because at the end of the day, it's not to shame anybody. It's not to retaliate against anyone. It's not to get revenge. It's not out of bitterness or anger. It is my story. And I have to tell people all the time, this is your story. What happened to you, it happened. It happened to you, yes. And there is other parties involved, but it's still your story. So you can own it and you can tell it, and you don't have to feel guilty about it, because if you're telling it from a healed place instead of a hurt place, it's going to be cathartic. It's going to be healing for you. By sharing your story and opening up, you're releasing something. You're getting it out of your system. You're getting off your chest, because a lot of times we go around carrying stuff and holding in stuff, not realizing that it's bringing on disease, it's bringing on sickness, mental illness, depression. All of those things you're carrying around a weight, because you're the only one carrying it and you haven't yet found a healthy place to release it. And I'll just share this with the viewers, even if you're not yet in a place where you want to share it publicly, get into counseling, get into therapy. One thing that I love that you said, Apostle Chris, is that you had a therapist. And I believe I'm a strong advocate for mental health providers. I'm a strong advocate for therapy and counseling. Even in that kind of environment, it's one of the healthiest places that you can go to release your story, to open up and talk about what happened to you, whether it's a pastor, whether it's a licensed clinician, whether it's a doctor, whatever it is. And of course, praying and talking to God and getting that leading and that guidance from the Holy Spirit to be able to get that out is very much, very much healthy. And if you ever get the courage to share your story in a book, look, I'm all for it. I believe in leaving your legacy by writing your story, because after you're long gone, there'll be people who will pick up that book, whether you're a part of a larger book of collection of stories or whether it's your own book. You can share your story in a way that leaves a legacy of healing and leaves a legacy of hope. And so I'm a big advocate for that kind of
Woo.
release. So yeah.
Okay. Woo. Okay. So now you're messing with me. You're messing with me, sis. I'm telling you right now, it's about to be on and popping. So let's dig this out. Let's carve this thing out, because I'm already, oh my God, I guess I got chills. It's amazing. So let's I want to go back to the little girl. Once she when you started acting out, what did that look like? Like, what did that kind of rebellious behavior, right? Cry for help, apparently, right? I imagine. What did that look like then?
Well, at first it looked like just acting out, like in the sense of, misbehaving in school, being the class clown, looking for attention. When I think back to like third grade, I remember always being the loud one, always being the one who had to be the center of the attention, always had to get the boys' attention, so to speak. I was boy is what we call, I don't know if they still call it boy crazy now, but I was that boy crazy little girl who constantly sought the attention of other boys. I remember in third grade, it was if it wasn't Kenneth, it was Bruce, and if it wasn't Bruce, it was James, and if and I could name them because I remember that kind of ruling my childhood, or it dominated my thought life as a young girl, third grade. And I look at third graders now, and I'm like, they're just babies. But in third grade, I'm like, we going out. That's my boyfriend. We go out. We go together. And these are third grade students. And so some of us, and when I look back on it, those of the small group of girls who were what we call fast and grown, I look back on and I could tell now that they also exhibited the signs of having something traumatic happen to them in their childhood, because we were growing up really fast. And so even though I had a strict mom, my mom was very, very much a disciplinarian, and she did not play any games. But I knew how to be sneaky. I knew how to sneak. I knew how to do what I was doing, but I always got caught. I knew how to do it, but I didn't know how to cover it up too well. But third, fourth, fifth grade, all the way up until I finished elementary school, I had boyfriend after boyfriend after boyfriend. And so I went through some early like traumas of heartbreak and dealing with rejection with boys. And because I was so boy crazy, I was bent on getting as many boys to like me as possible, because I was equating my value and my worth with what other male figures thought about me, no matter their age. And so at the same time, while I'm going through all of this, and this is dealing with like my elementary school years, I'm also dealing with the fact that my mother married. She got married, and the man that she married wound up being a crackhead. I shouldn't say crackhead. That's not the politically correct word to use nowadays. But he was addicted to crack and also shooting dope. And so because he was also an alcoholic, he exhibited a lot of ups and downs, a lot of mood swings, and a lot of behaviors that just, this pendulum could swing from him being the nicest guy to being the guy that was selling everything out of our apartment. So he embraced me as a daughter. So I was dealing with this confusion of, this man has taken me on as his own, as like I'm his own flesh and blood. But at the same time, he's hurting our family. He's ripping our family apart. So I got this dynamic of chasing behind male attention, but also seeking the approval of someone who had put drugs first. Drugs and alcohol was their God. That was what that came first. So, and what the light bulb went off for me was because one night I woke up and I caught him sneaking out the back door with my brand new mountain bike that he had gotten for Christmas. And it was like this light bulb went off, like, this person, it felt like rejection. This person does not really, this person can't be trusted. This, finding drugs in the house, finding crack pipes in the house, him taking me on his binge trips where, to hide it from my mom, he would take me to the houses where he would smoke crack with his friends. And so that was the exposure that that was the lifestyle that I was exposed to as a young girl. So we were being raised in church. My mother was bringing us to church. and we're very much involved. She's very, I mean, when I tell you holiness, apostolic, fire baptized holiness, and then at home we're dealing with this with my stepfather.
Okay, so let me jump in here.
Uh,
Where was your biological dad?
so it's interesting because I did not know my biological dad. I didn't know him until 2020. I found him through Ancestry DNA, but unfortunately he had already passed away.
Wow.
But I gained sisters. I'm still the baby, but I now I have, I believe it is six sisters, and I'm the seventh. And so I gained a whole family, and I love my family, the Valentines. Um, but I never got a chance to meet my father. But
Mm.
yeah, so I don't think my mother knew who he was. I don't think she knew who the father was, but the man who signed my birth certificate wanted to be a father, so she met him while she was pregnant with me. So we always knew he wasn't my dad, the guy who signed my birth certificate. But I grew up without a father figure because even though he wanted to take me on as his daughter, again, rejection, he left just a few years later and just wasn't involved. His name was Ben,
Mhm.
but he took on this responsibility and then abandoned my mother. So
Have you ever had any contact with him after that?
I've seen him over the years, just sporadically, but he was also addicted to drugs. So he's been in and out of the street. So I would every now and then I would see him at a soup kitchen when I was volunteering because I've always been a community service type person. So I'll be volunteering at the soup kitchen. He'd be in there, eating. So I would see him from time to time, but I don't have a relationship with him.
So now I'm trying to framework this whole your backdrop, right? So make sure we got this right. You raised with your mom, who was in the church,
Mm-hmm.
holiness.
Yep.
You were you were violated, and you're still living this whole world of being violated, but you're still in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So your mom is taking you to church, and she's very strict. But then there's this family secret that's an open secret, but we're still in the church.
Right. Now
And
my
then
mother, she didn't know. No one, none of my family members knew until I wrote my book in
okay,
2017.
but your the boyfriend, right, of your mom was on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom knew. She knew. Still in church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the boyfriend is bringing you to the crack house. You're in your teens around here, 13,
No,
14.
this is all everything that I mentioned is up until like sixth grade.
Oh Jesus.
I haven't even gotten into middle school yet. But this is my life from third to sixth grade, elementary school. Yeah.
So at this time, were you active sexually?
Yes, but I hadn't lost my virginity yet.
Okay.
I was because the thing was, even though, and this is the thing, back then I was so bent on trying to gain the approval or get as many boys to like me that I pretended as if I wasn't a virgin.
Okay. I know. I get it. I understand that. Yeah.
A lot of us girls did. I think it was weird because at that age you don't realize the damage that's being done to your reputation because when you're in elementary school, it seems cool. But then by the time I got into seventh and eighth grade, I was labeled. Can I say the H word on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time I got into seventh and eighth grade, I was the neighborhood hoe, even though I was a virgin, because I had put this image out there that I had been with all of these boys. And that's what I thought was the cool thing. That's what I thought was the image that I wanted. But it wasn't until I got older, and it wasn't long after, but seventh, eighth grade, and I realized these labels that started to get put on me, which leads me to the point where eventually when I came up with the brand Outlive the Labels, a lot of times it's labels that we put on ourselves. And not just the labels that society puts on us or others put on us, but the labels that we put on ourselves because we're too damaged to see ourselves in God's image. Like we're too damaged to be able to see ourselves through the lens of God's eyes. And so because we don't see our value and our worth, we will put ourselves down. We will do everything in our power to like the Bible says, it's a foolish woman that tears down her own house. And we will tear down ourselves and tear down our value because it's giving us some sense of satisfaction in the moment. But when you're young like that, your brain isn't even fully developed. Like your brain is like the executive function of your brain isn't even fully developed to understand the long-term consequences of your actions. So by the time I got into like seventh and eighth grade, I had so many boyfriends and I had so much experience, even though I had not gone all the way, so to speak, that when that time came, it was
wow.
I hit the ground running and I wound up pregnant. Like I almost out the gate. I wound up pregnant because I just went crazy. Because I was like, I already got this reputation. I might as well enjoy it. I mean, when I tell you the reputation was bad, it was just I moved to my mother moved us to Stratford, from Bridgeport to Stratford, and my reputation followed me into Stratford.
Wow.
And I still hadn't been with a boy like that. But once I got into Stratford, I was like, well, I might as well do it, and I wound up pregnant, 14 years old.
So you're 14 years old. You got this horrible reputation. So now you're still like you're still a baby, right?
Baby.
14. You got now mentally, right? You think you are the it, apparently, right? Because
I thought
because you developed this whole persona about yourself, which you thought was good, right? You were like all the boys wanted you, right? Because you developed some reputation and I think you must have at some point realized that the attention, the fact that they wanted you and nobody really had you like that was a part of the allure, right? Because regardless of what, and that's one thing about that, like, because even as a young boy, we all knew who the girl was that everybody wanted, but the dudes really knew they didn't have her, so they really was trying to get her.
Right.
So now you got all this attention, right? Playing this, the carrot before, like, holding the carrot, right? That whole, and now it is that you are 14, and you were like, you know what? Let me just get to it. I might as well do it. I got the rep now. Let me just give in, and now you end up pregnant.
Right.
So
now let's the call. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how that happened with your mom and let's talk about from the beginning when you first found out. How'd you know? Like, what was the first indication that you was?
Well, because I was like a size 00, it didn't take long. I think I was 6 weeks and my stomach was just sticking out, like it just popped out. And I remember going to church. I was at First Baptist Church in Stratford with my aunt. And I remember walking in, and immediately one of the youth leaders grabbed me. They pulled me into the back office. And those of you that might be familiar with First Baptist, they had just built that prayer room in the back. And they pulled me in the prayer room and they started praying. And one of them like, "Are you pregnant?" How did you know? Like, and so anyway, it also came about as far as my mom finding out. They kept it private, but they just prayed for me. But I went to the dentist and my mom was with me because again, I'm underage, so she's there with me in the room and they're about to do an x-ray. And one of the things they're going to ask you before they give you an x-ray is, are you pregnant? No matter how old you are, they got to ask you these standard questions. And so I was like, and so the lady kind of caught on to the fact that I didn't want to say anything in front of my mom. And so they pulled my mom out of the room, and I told them, and they said, okay, we'll get a social worker to share this news with your mother, because I was afraid she was going to beat the baby out of me. Because remember, my mother was a strict disciplinarian, and I literally thought she would beat this baby out of me. And so they brought a social worker to the house and broke the news to my mom. And my mother, after the social worker left, she said, okay, you going down to the clinic, you're going to get an abortion. And me and my boyfriend at the time, we thought we was going to be together forever. We thought we was going to be married.
How old was he?
What's that?
How old was he?
He was 16. So my stepfather and my mom tried to get him locked up for statutory rape. It was a big circus. But they eventually made me get the abortion. At first, I didn't want to get it. I still didn't want to get it, but eventually, she convinced me to do it. And I was so depressed that that was my first suicide attempt after having the abortion, and then finding out that my boyfriend, I suspected he was cheating on me, and just that spiraled me out of control. So I crashed out and pretty much locked myself into a bathroom, took a bunch of pills, and thought that that was it. And it wasn't. I just wound up getting my stomach pumped and having to go to therapy for the first time. And that was my first introduction to therapy. So I looked at it as, back then, even though it was traumatic for me, and it was my first, I say my first because there were four more after that.
Jesus.
My first suicide attempt, it was like, it was one of those situations where I knew I wasn't really doing it for the attention. I really did want to die. I didn't see any value to my life. It was the first time I was experiencing this thought, like that everything that I did would just kind of fall apart. It was like the first thought that I had was, I suck at life. Like, I'm just not good at this. Everything that I do just turns bad. Everything that I make all the wrong choices. I can't seem to make the right. No one loves me. No one accepts me. Kept experiencing this rejection. And that was my first time experiencing that. And that was a repeated emotion throughout my early adulthood, was this feeling of worthlessness, like life would be better without you and all of that. And if someone's watching this that's experiencing that, I want to encourage you, please talk to somebody, because one of the things in therapy that I learned, even though I was a young girl in high school and I was forced to go to therapy, the therapist was one of the best things that could have happened to me, because she started to unpack those layers of hurt that I was going through. And even though it took some years, it took some time for me to really get to a place of wholeness, and get beyond that and start to see my value and see my worth. It was the start of me being able to have that first validation of, okay, this is normal. I'm not crazy. And there is life beyond this.
Well,
So please, talk to someone, and don't just hold that in.
well, let's talk about this for a few moments. So as we're addressing those who are listening tonight, could you help maybe a mother or father who's dealing with a young girl who's exhibiting these kind of rebellious behaviors, and how if they have, like, because one of the difficult things I can imagine is a mother or father trying to help their daughter realize that life is worth living, right?
Yeah.
That they are valuable, because children typically believe parents are supposed to say that, right? So
Mhm.
they can kind of dismiss it like, well, that's my mom, that's my dad, they're supposed to say that. You don't understand what I'm going through. So what could you lend to those who are dealing with that right now with a young girl or young man? What are some of the things that you can help them with in that? Just
Yeah. One thing that I would really strongly suggest, because as parents, it's easy for us to try to say everything that we can possibly say, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, so to speak. We want to talk and do more talking than listening, because we're the authority figure. We want to tell them what we know, what we think is the right thing. We want to, and a lot of it's good. We're going to try to give them all the encouragement and empowerment. But one of the best things that you can do as parents is to listen to your child. Let them speak. Hear them out. And if they're not open to speaking to you, get them the help that they need and put them in an environment. Place them among people that they do feel safe opening up to. And so you might have to get what we call influencers, people who can speak their language, so to speak, but give them the opportunity to speak and get it out. Because a lot of times now, as a parent myself of two young men who are in their 20s, I'm starting to understand that as a parent, it becomes easy to just bombard them with information of what you want them to hear, what you want them to know. And sometimes we forget that we're helping them to develop their own voice too. And so help them to develop that voice and speaking out and speaking up by listening more, than, because a lot of times we're afraid to just not say anything, because that silent, if you feel like you're not saying anything, you feel like you're doing them a disservice, or there's something that you should be saying that you're not. But I promise you, there's room. We always, as the parents, we always got room to give them the information we want to give them. However, because it might not even be verbally that we communicate it, but find them, if they're a reader, find, get the books that may be helpful. If they're not a reader, if there's YouTube videos or certain videos that they can be influenced by. Like I send my sons videos of Dr. Miles Monroe all the time, not long videos because they aren't gonna listen to it, but little short clips. I'll send them videos of Dr. Miles Monroe speaking about a certain thing about integrity or character. I'll send them videos of Earl Nightingale speaking about success and growth and determination. I'll send them videos, of Norman Vincent Peale. And so whatever might influence your child, start to give them the influencers, because you can say one thing, you can say 10 things, and somebody else can come behind you and say those exact 10 things, and it's going to hit different. They're going to relate to it. They're going to digest it. They're going to understand it differently coming from another voice. Because like you said, Apostle, they're going to hear you and they're going to think that's what my mom, that's what my dad's supposed to say. Mm-hmm. So surround them with the influence, and the multitude of counselors, their safety. So we understand that for ourselves, but we have to also understand that for our children. We can't be, I can't say can't, but we should not be the only influence in their life. Surround them with that positive reinforcement.
I wanted to say to those of you who are listening, please share, hit the like button, hit those, because the algorithms really take off. There's some people who are really going to need to hear this. So please, I know this story is captivating. We have an amazing guest here, attorney Mary Kay Holmes, who is with us sharing her story. So please hit that like, hit that share button. There are some other people who really need to hear. We're just getting into the early stages of her life, and it's already an awful lot to digest. But I want to raise this one thing while you were talking. What about those parents? Because a lot of the parents are embarrassed, right, to deal with that, right? So because your child says they got depression, drug issues, and all these other things, and some parents don't want to be embarrassed, right? They have it's shame. So help us deal with that a little bit, because I think that needs to be highlighted. Why a lot of kids don't get help, because just forget it. You're gonna be all right. You'll be fine. That's just the devil. You just got to rebuke it and throw oil on them and roll them around in the church a little bit, and you be all right, right? But it's now we're realizing it's more than that,
right?
So help us help that parent who's dealing with shame, right? They're not saved enough. They're not anointed enough. They don't have the power of the Holy Ghost enough, right? All that.
Your children's faults, failures, their slip-ups, their mistakes are just that. It's theirs. It doesn't belong to you. It's not a reflection on you, because a lot of times you can do everything that you could possibly do. You can check all the boxes. You can be the epitome of the perfect parent. And that child is going to leave your presence and go into a public school system 9 times out of 10, even if and private schools have their own set of issues. Let me just say that, because listen, some of them, I knew some private school kids, and they were worse off than some of us public school kids, because their exposure was a whole nother type of environment that they were in, where they were influenced by others, and that peer pressure and all of that. But they're going to go off into a school system or another environment outside of your care, unless you're homeschooling them. They're getting influence from social media. They're bombarded with information, and especially kids nowadays. I am so grateful I did not grow up in the social media age, but they're bombarded with so much. Give yourself a break and take the weight off of yourself of blaming yourself or being embarrassed by your children's behaviors, because what you're probably going to find is that if you do choose to open up, you're probably going to find that most other parents are dealing with some of the same things you're dealing with, and we're afraid to open up as well. So whether it's your child on drugs, whether it's your child going through a mental health crisis, whether it's your child going through issues in school, whether it's your child going through issues, whether it's, a disability or a learning disability or physical ailment, whatever it is that they're dealing with. And trust me, I can check all of those boxes, because When I was raising my two boys, I had a child who had special needs because he was going through different things related to his premature birth. I had a son who was exhibiting all of these behaviors, acting out because of the things he had witnessed growing up with my dad, with his dad and me. And I saw them go through these crises, but I was too young, and I just didn't know enough to get the help that I needed. But I remember when I was court ordered, I'm jumping ahead in the story, but I remember I was court ordered to go to group therapy with other parents. And when I tell you, it was so freeing and so refreshing to know that I was not alone. So I just want to first say you're not by yourself. There's plenty of other parents going through the same things or similar things that you're going through with your children. And and it's not a reflection of your anointing. Like, you can be anointed and have a child that's going crazy. Like, I've seen it. Like, I have seen it. It doesn't matter how anointed you are. It doesn't. You can be this powerful preacher, this great woman, this great man of God. You can be the apostle, and your child could just be going left. But when I tell you, it's not your fault. It's not. And yes, I understand. As parents, we're gonna feel as if everything is our responsibility, and if we didn't do a certain thing right, and we feel we could have done something better, we're always gonna feel as if there's something we could have done better. You could be, just this top-notch parent, and you're always gonna look back and you're gonna learn something later on and say, I wish I had done it this way. But you can't reflect, so you can't get caught up in that, because your children are going to make, they're human, they're going to make mistakes along the way. But it's how you help them navigate through those spaces and help them along that journey, that's going to make the impact and make the difference. And
Yeah.
finding a support system of other parents that understand, that you're comfortable with, that's your safe place, is going to help you to not feel as if you're alone in that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has hurt us in the church is that place where we can no longer feel it's a safe place, right? Because that's one of the things about community, and that we all struggle and we go through life, and we find that the church should be the one place that we wrestle not against flesh and blood or principalities and powers, but then we don't really believe, like, then we get this little squirming of people. When you're going through, you think everybody knows your stuff, that
Mm,
everybody's talking about your stuff, right? So now it makes you clam up, it makes you hide, right? It makes you not want to reveal what's going on, right?
uh-huh.
So and then we have this whole shaming thing we just went through that with the young girl who got pregnant in the church, and the pastor was like, don't
Mm,
have the baby shower and don't have, right?
right.
So then you have other parents who are looking at that and they are fearful, so they force their kids get an abortion, because we've heard this before, right? Get
Mm,
an abortion, or they send that child down south, have that baby, leave the baby down south, bring the child back up, and now the baby thinks that the mama and them are sisters. We've heard that
right.
story too, right?
You've heard
And
that.
this
We've
is
seen that too many times.
yeah, and this is all because of that whole idea of shaming, being
Right.
embarrassed that
Right.
our children make decisions, do different things, and we kind of make it about us, right?
Hmm.
The parents make it about them when that child is suffering, as we all declare, they are in silence because
Right.
they can't really get the help they need. Thank
And
you
we
for that.
create more trauma. We create by
Mm,
trying to hide it and being ashamed and being embarrassed and trying to cover up. We create more trauma, for
mm,
generational trauma at that. Because now you're dealing with what you're inflicting upon your child. But then, if, like, say, for example, the scenario that you gave where you hide a baby, and then now that child grows up to find out that their parent is not really their parent, that their parent is really their aunt, or their,
mm,
or their, whatever the dynamic. I've seen that story too many times.
mhm.
And so it's like, then you create more trauma trying to cover up. And it's like, you can't get around it. Either you're going to deal with it now, or you're going to deal with a lot more down the road. And so it's better to deal with things up front and to get some of that out of the way, and confront it. Because if you try to, instead of confronting it, if you try to cover it, at some point that's going to come up. It's going to that is going to come back to haunt the family, haunt you,
Mm,
or it's going to weigh on you, and it's really not worth it. It's better to deal with it. And then, like I said, you'll likely find that you have more support and more comfort in opening up than you do trying to hide stuff, because
mm.
that's torment. There's torment in that. trying to hide trauma. That's tormenting for the spirit.
Wow. Okay. So let's journey on. That was good. That was so good.
Yeah, because
So
we're only up to like seventh grade. Like, no. Well, now, well, the pregnancy, that's ninth grade. So now we're up
okay.
to like ninth grade.
Ninth grade. Okay. Ninth grade. So we're in ninth grade. Pregnancy, abortion, depression, suicide. Your first unalive attempt. And now, when this happened, your mom, of course, knew, right, that you tried to take yourself, take your life, and that must have been devastating to her.
Yeah.
What was going through? I mean, when you failed at that, what was the like? Was it like I failed, or I'm glad I failed? What was it?
At first, I felt like I can't even. Well, I know you're on YouTube. Let me not use those words.
Yeah.
I don't want to get you shadow banned, or TikTok or whatever. But yeah, at first I felt like I can't even do this right. That I did feel that. But then I remember like having this feeling like, okay, get it together. Talking to the therapist that helped me to start to see like the why I was spiraling out of control, the behaviors that was like the first time I was starting to open up about things that happened to me as a child, even though I still hadn't opened up to my family.
Was there any drugs at this time? Would you do any kind of drugs, weed or anything?
Weed, yes, a lot of weed. But of course, at that age, you didn't view it as drugs. You view that as like, you just smoking.
Okay.
You getting high or whatever. And at the same time, I started to hang with a different crowd because now I'm no longer pregnant. I'm no longer with my boyfriend that I thought was going to be my future husband, so to speak. But now I'm hanging with a different crew and we smoking out every day. We selling the drug. We think we this little crew that we get the little nickel bags and the dime bags, and we're getting the bag, selling the little nickel bags and dime bags or whatever, and smoking at the same time, getting high on our own supply. But so I'm now out there trying to be this. The best way I can describe it is the Lil Kim, the Foxy Brown of the crew, because that was glorified in our community. As a young girl in high school, if you weren't like the Eve or the Lil Kim or the Foxy Brown, the female in the crew that was down like the other guys, then you were viewed as like a cornball. And I was the nerd. I really was. I was going through an identity crisis. And a lot of my Facebook friends that I have from high school, they can attest to this. Like I was so not that, but I tried to be that because I was trying to find where did I fit in? Like who was I? Because I don't want to be this promiscuous girl anymore. I want to be the ride or die chick. So I've transitioned into now acting out in other ways.
So you were about to talk about the therapist because I want you. You said now you're trying to find the why, right? We were dealing with that. I know I threw you off a little bit with the drug thing, but let's get to that because I think that's going to hit home when you sit with your therapist and getting that counsel and trying to figure it out.
That was the first experience that I had in talking about what happened to me as a child.
Okay.
I didn't see it as significant because I'm thinking this is what she's supposed to do. I was a reader. I read a lot of books. So I kind of knew what a therapist is supposed to do. I kind of knew what counseling was supposed to do, or what some of the questions and some of the things that she would draw out of me. So I thought I was outsmarting her. But looking back, I remember her shedding light on a lot of things like that was like exposing. This is why you're acting out. We're not going to deal with the pregnancy. We're going to deal with why did you gravitate towards this young man? Like what made you fall so deep and so hard to where you really just was, just ready to do everything you can to not so much. It wasn't like I got pregnant on purpose. We just happened to get pregnant, but all my life centered around having this ideal relationship that will one day blossom into a marriage, we would have this happy home and we would have multiple kids and we could raise our family and we could both finish high school and our parents would help us, and this whole fantasy that I had, she started to like unpack, like, okay, what are you chasing? Like, is it really that you're after this boy accepting you and it rescuing you? Pretty much that's what it was. I was trying to get away from the life that I was used to. I thought I could run off into the sunset pregnant at 14 with this 6-year-old boyfriend, and that his job at Subway was somehow going to support us, and that we would be. But what it really was, I was escaping from something. I was escaping from the crackhead stepfather. I was escaping from the dysfunctional household. I was escaping from the strict mother. I was escaping from the house where I was the baby of the family that didn't feel accepted by any of my siblings. We're closer now, and I'm so grateful for the years that I was able to gain back with my brother and develop a close relationship with him. But as a kid, I didn't feel like I fit in because I was the baby. And when I say I was the baby, there's a huge age gap between me and my siblings. They're all closer in age, and then I came along, so I didn't really fit in. Wow. And so I was escaping from this feeling of rejection, trying to create this ideal world where I would have this baby that would love me unconditionally and I could love unconditionally. And a lot of young girls go through that, and young men too. They think that having kids is going to give them what they're missing. They're trying to use a baby or a pregnancy to either have a relationship or to have a child that they feel, now this is my own. I have something for myself. And so all of that came out in therapy. I started to understand why I was acting out, why I was exhibiting these behaviors, why I wanted love so badly, why I wanted a child so badly. And it really wasn't a healthy reason. It was coming from a hurt place, not a healthy place.
So was it you were trying to create your own family dynamic because yours was so broken, and so you were trying to redevelop your own thing, because now I can have what I long for, right? Closeness, unity, harmony, all the things that we desire.
Right. Wow, now imagine this broken little girl trying to create that for a child. Like, wow. It's like I thought that I could do it. I genuinely thought at 14 that I remember even telling my mother, I said, I'm going to get my own place. And she said, okay. Because I was working at Dunkin'. I had a little job at Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins. And by this time, I'm like 15. And she was like, okay, all right, I'll help you look for an apartment. So we go to look at an apartment, and the owner, and I could, like, hindsight is 2020. But at the time, we're looking at the apartment, and he's telling me how much the rent is, and he's telling me what the utilities might be and all of this stuff. And I'm like doing the math in my head, and I'm realizing, like, I cannot afford to live on my own, because I'm thinking you just got to pay rent. I didn't think light bill, gas bill. I didn't think about furnishing an apartment. I didn't think about cable if I wanted to watch my MTV or VH1 or whatever. BET. Like, I didn't think about that stuff. I didn't think about the fact that my mother was giving me bus fare to get back and forth to work, and where my money was really going to start to go if I was on my own. And I remember her kind of standing off to the side, listening to me navigate, trying to figure out how much is this really going to cost. And I knew she must have set this up to where she had a conversation with this landlord before we even got there. Like, just go along with it. Just, And anyway, by the time I walked out of there, I realized, I had my tail tucked between my legs, because I realized, like, I did not know adulting was this hard. Like, I did not know that this is real life. But I had this concept that I really could create my own fantasy life. I could create the life that I always wanted. And so anyway, yeah, it's interesting. When you're at that age, you don't realize you don't know how much you don't know.
Yeah.
You think you know everything.
Yeah, I said to my son one day, I says, what do you think this money comes from? Like, you think we just because that's how kids think, right? They think it just grows on trees and it appears. Right?
It just out of nowhere. Yeah, it just shows up in your bank account. But yeah.
Wow. Just real quick. So those of you who are listening, we're talking to attorney Mary Kay Holmes, who's sharing her life story with us. It's amazing. Please hit that like, hit that share button, tag somebody, call your friend, text your buddy, tell them they need to hear what this woman of God is saying. It is. Listen, we're just really getting into it. And listen, I'm listening to your story. And I'm saying, okay, well, it seemed like you learned your lesson, and you're like 15 now, and you're got some therapy, and wow, you're on your way, right? Like, you're about to, right? So this is now. I know there's some more coming, but if I was just to stop and look at you in your life at this moment, it looks like to me, okay, you figured it out, right? You go to your counselor. You got some good therapy going on. You got you've been rescued. let's go. So we're on our way. We're on our way for you to be that attorney that you're going to be, right? I mean, that's just
Well,
okay.
not
Okay,
by a long shot,
let's get
because
this.
this is where things got really bad.
Okay.
So I'm 15 years old, and I've already gone through everything that we've already discussed. Now I am ripe for the picking for someone to come along and try to show me I can give you everything that you've been longing for. You won't have to worry about money. You can have the cars. You can have the brand new clothes, the brand new, get your nails done every week, get you go to the hair salon every week. Because here comes this 36-year-old man. I'm 15.
Oh, wow.
30, he's 36.
Jesus.
Flashing his money. He's a hustler. He's well known around Bridgeport. He's the guy that plays the shell game and on the bus where he's hustling people out of their money. I'm working at the Dunkin' Donuts downtown Bridgeport on Main Street. He comes in with his fitted caps, with his matching t-shirts, and he's got the swag and all of that stuff, and he's pulling out 20s after 20s just to buy a smoothie. And then he invites me to come make some money with him. And he says, how would you like to make more money working with me in one day than you make all week? So I go along with him, and the next thing I know, I'm his girlfriend. And to make a long story short, because it took some grooming, but it didn't take much. It just took some flashing some money, taking me out to eat, doing things I've never done, which is simple things like going to TGI Fridays. I grew up on welfare. Like I grew up in Section 8 apartments. There was no room to go to restaurants, even if it was something like a Chili's or, going to the movies. That wasn't normal. It wasn't normal for me to be able to just go out to eat, even if it was someplace like that. So he's taking me out to eat. He's giving me money. He's sending me to the salon to get my hair done. He's sending me to New York to go buy school clothes. He's dropping me off to school. Eventually, it gets to the point where I'm being dropped off at school in a Range Rover. I'm able to drive his car, doing all of these things where I'm like, this is my escape out of poverty. This is my way out. This is my way to get everything that I've been waiting for, just like that. Because it was like overnight, I'm dressing different. I'm walking to school. I'm no longer the nerdy cornball. I'm walking in now with the new clothes and the new sneakers. My God. And so anyway, it got to the point where I'm getting used to this lifestyle and I'm enamored by it, to where when the abuse started happening, I accepted it because it came along with the gifts and the honeymoon stages and the makeup stages where you're being showered with all this love and affection. And what I talk about in my book is a lot of times when you're dealing with the spirit of rejection and you want to be accepted so bad, even an embrace that really is a controlling embrace feels comforting, because you feel like this person is so jealous because they love you that much. They don't want anybody else to have you. You mean that much to them. You get them angry when you smile at another person because they want you for themselves. So that feels to me like I'm tailor made for this person. I'm meant for them. I mean that much to them, to where they'll go into violent rages over me. They'll get upset with me because they care that much. And so I started to equate all of this abuse with acceptance and him wanting me that bad that he wouldn't let go. And so that control felt like a warm embrace, because for the first time in my life, I'm experiencing where this person wants me, but I didn't realize, no, this person wants to control you. This person wants to restrict you. This person wants to use you. Matter of fact, this person is a pedophile, because no 36-year-old man should see anything in a 15-year-old little girl. Like that's not normal. But to me, I felt like I'm just that mature that a 36-year-old man would want me. I'm just that cute that a 36-year-old man would be interested in me. I carry myself that classy to where a 36-year-old man would want me. And that's what a lot of young girls feel when these pedophiles come after them. They think that they're mature enough, that they're just that mature. But no, they can't bag a woman their age, because they know that most women that's in their
Wow.
age range is not going to fall for the manipulation, the control, and the tactics that they're putting out. So they need to find a young girl that they can shape and they can mold. And one thing that he used to always say, and he said it for years, he would say, I raised you. He
Mm-mm.
literally shaped and molded my mind to the point where I was indoctrinated to think like how he thought. I was indoctrinated to do things the way he did them. And a matter of fact, I was his before there was the language for it. I was this trap queen, so to speak. I was in high school, but I was the one that was cooking up coke for him. I was the one that was bagging it up. I was the one that was helping him distribute it to the young kids in New Haven. And when we would go to the city, when we go to the Bronx to cop more keys, like we would get kilos of cocaine. I don't know how much I could say on your channels.
No, you can. But
Okay.
I want to ask you a question. Stay right there. But I want to. Was there anybody in your life telling you that this was wrong? Do you have anybody saying, "Girl," and your
So
girlfriends, and just, I mean, just any? I want you to stay on track. But that just dropped in my head. And I just want to.
So my family really didn't know too much at the time, but I remember there was this one friend that I had. Her name was Danielle, and she tried to warn me about him
Okay.
because remember at that age, you have the girls around you that are looking at it like this is the like oh she got put on like she
Gotcha.
got the older man like
Yeah.
it's cool, but I'm so grateful for people like Danielle who was like something's not right, like why every time you over my house and he pages you, pagers back in the day,
Yeah.
he pages you, you gotta leave, you all of a sudden you can't even linger for a few minutes, like you gotta leave right away, you gotta call him back right away or else. Like she started recognizing that something is not right, like this person is controlling you, or this jealousy is unhealthy. And so then it got to the point where she didn't see me anymore because he had me locked away in his apartment. And
Oh.
so she said, now I didn't know this until years later, but Danielle, I put a, how every now and then I'll put a post out on Facebook telling a little bit of my testimony. And Danielle, she commented, she said, I remember when I ran into him downtown in Bridgeport and I asked him where you were, and he acted like he didn't know where you were. And that whole time he had isolated me from my family. And that's what abusers will do. They'll isolate you from anybody who is willing to tell you the truth. They'll isolate you from your support system. They'll isolate you even from people who aren't even necessarily supportive, but anybody who might be able to see through them. And so they'll isolate you from everybody. And then that's where they do the brainwashing. That's where they start to do the indoctrination. That's when they start to put their thoughts into your mind and their ideas into your mind, their way of life into your behavior patterns. And so I was literally locked away in his apartment where I wasn't allowed to leave. I wasn't allowed to use the phone. I wasn't allowed to answer the door. It was one of those apartment buildings where if you left the apartment and you didn't have a key, it would lock behind you. So I was literally locked inside all day. And when I got pregnant with our first child, I would be in the house with no food, sometimes for days. I remember having just one can of tuna fish to like ration, just to eat little by little because he didn't come home for a few days. But I was afraid to leave the apartment. Like I'm on Route 66 in Middletown, Connecticut, which down that road you got all of these stores, all of these businesses, and I was afraid to go and just use a payphone. I was afraid to knock on a neighbor's door and ask for help because that was the beginning of human trafficking for me, was being forced into a criminal lifestyle and then being forced to do everything that he told me to do and not being able to have the freedom to go anywhere or see my family or hear from my family.
How old were you then? Like,
This was from
it started
this
at
this
15.
started this started right after high school. So now I'm 17
Okay.
and 18, pregnant and locked away in his apartment because I went away. I went to college for a little bit for one semester,
Hmm.
but because I was pregnant, I didn't continue, and that's how I wound up in Milltown because I was going to Central State in New Britain. And so he made me go to that school because it was closer to him. Like I wanted to go to Spelman.
Hmm.
Like I wanted to go to a HBCU.
Hmm.
And he told me where I can go to college. He was like, "No, you're gonna go to a state school and it's go." He was like, "Apply to Wesleyan in Middletown or CCSU in New Britain." And I had to do what you, not that I had to, but in my mind, I had to listen to him or else. So yeah.
Did you feel like you were indebted to him? Did you feel like he kind of gave you a world or a life that you had to protect? I mean, what was the control? I mean, I know you say he indoctrinated you, but help us understand a little bit the control aspect of that.
So this is how manipulators work.
Okay.
They'll dangle a carrot. First is this ideal lifestyle. Oh, we're gonna build this life together. It's the classic pimp hope game. We're gonna build this we're gonna build this life together. We're gonna have the world. It's gonna be me and you against the world. When we get here, when we do this is what it's gonna look like. And he painted this picture of this successful, glamorous lifestyle. Oh, I'm about to get put on. I'm about to be signed to Def Jam. I'm about to be Rough Riders is looking at me. Dior Cohen is looking at me. Russell Simmons is talking to me about doing a documentary. He's dangling this glamorous lifestyle in front of a teenage girl. And one day I'm gonna be faithful. When I get one of y'all pregnant, because now he's even openly telling me I'm cheating on you, but one day you're gonna have me to yourself. One day it's just gonna be me and you. He would say, you're gonna one day you're gonna tame this OG. He talked in riddles and he would talk in rhymes. And so because he was a rapper also. So he would sing and rap and make these rhymes, and it played with you mentally. As a young girl, I remember it was almost like when someone is trying to hypnotize you, and so they repeat things over and over again, and you start to just become dull to it, and you start to long for finally to see what they've been promising. So you hold on. So the first year goes by and he's still making the promises. So you're thinking, I've been in this long, let me just wait another 6 months. So then after a while, you starting to see a little glimmer of hope. You start to see a little sign of, okay, the money's coming in. He's letting me have a little bit more freedom. Let me stick it out a little bit. Now I'm pregnant. Let me just stick it out because I don't want to be a statistic. I don't want to go back to my family and friends and admit that I made a mistake. I don't want to have a baby by different fathers. I want to, have a life where he married. Okay, now he's giving me a ring and he's promising me that he'll marry me. And so every stage, it was like this carrot being dangled along the way that made me hold on and say, eventually I'm going to get what I've been promised. And so now this is what he would say. He would give me this story, this parable. He would repeat it all the time. And this is another thing about control, is these repeated things. He'll say, there was a story of a man who was digging for gold. And he bought these expensive shovels and these expensive tools, and he's digging and he's digging and he's digging. And then one day he gets tired and just throws down all of his tools and walks away. And somebody walks up behind him and sees the tools on the ground and digs. And with the first dig, they hit gold. That's what it's going to be if you leave me. Somebody else is going to get everything you paid the price for. Somebody else, another young girl is going to come up behind you, and they're going to reap all the benefits of everything that you paid the price and you've done to get me to this place. And somebody else is going to come along and snatch up this OG. I fell for it. Because remember, I'm still a kid. When I look at 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and like 19, even 20 and 21-year-olds, they're babies to me. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, I was just a little girl. Of course I fell for it. Of course, there's some other young people who may not fall for it. But I have to give myself that grace to understand, like, this took some time. Like, you were groomed into this. Now imagine hearing these things from the age of 15 to being like 21, 22 years old.
Wow.
When I tell you, when the light bulb went off and I got out, my mother cheered like she saw me graduate from law school. She didn't get a chance to see me graduate. She passed away before then.
Sorry.
But when I tell you, she cheered, like when she saw me stand up to him and leave him, that to me was more important for her to see that than any of my other accomplishments in life. Like, she got to see me get away from this man.
Wow.
And, like, she literally cheered. She was like, yeah, oh my goodness, finally, that's what I've been waiting on. But they saw me go through this period of time where I just could not. Because once your mind is in, once they get your mind, everything else follows. And he had my mind.
I want to say this. You said something, but I want to I want to highlight this and magnify a little bit. You said you had to give yourself grace,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's very important for a lot of people who are listening to you tonight to realize that all those things that we've done in our past, right, in our those years,
Yeah.
we need to give ourselves grace, right?
Right.
That of course you were misguided, of course you were manipulated. How could you not have been? Like when you look back now, because there's a lot of people who are still carrying the shame, right? The guilt,
Right.
all those things that the effects of trauma that they have to look back and say, of course, I was 21 years old. Of course I wasn't thinking right. My mind wasn't even developed. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to give yourself a level of grace so that you can move on. And people won't, there are other people who will criticize. And that's the thing, that the shaming thing. They'll
Mm-hmm.
criticize what you did in your past when we have to fight against that and say, whatever, I
Mm-hmm.
still give myself grace.
Right.
Right. That's so important. I believe
It
that
is.
is a very powerful statement because there's a lot of us who still have not been able to really give ourselves that true, authentic grace
Amen.
that you
Yeah.
mentioned. Yeah.
Exactly.
That was
Exactly.
powerful. That was powerful.
Yeah, we have to forgive ourselves, and because at the same time, not only even if I wasn't young, let's say I was a young adult, let's say I was a 30 something year old woman going through this, I still would have to give myself that grace, because when someone plays on your psyche and your emotions, because people know who they can manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
When you've gone through the traumas in life, when you've gone through all of those things that have made you, that have just kind of broken you down, men or even women, anyone who's a manipulator can sniff that out a mile away. They're gonna pounce on that. And on the spiritual side, of course, that is recognizable. You're gonna attract certain things. And so give yourself that grace, because when we're going through that, our judgment is clouded. We're
Mm-hmm.
not able to make the right, like, it's the easiest time when you're dealing with unhealed trauma, and you have these open wounds, so to speak. It becomes easier for someone to come along and take advantage of that and exploit that. And so, yeah, and I would love to say that after I escaped from that, that things got better, but it got worse after that, because again, I hadn't given myself that grace yet. I was beating myself up,
Mm-hmm.
I was blaming myself, and I was unhealed. And because I was so broken and I didn't get the help that I needed yet, I went from one horrible, I used to say relationship, but now I understand, like, that was not a relationship. That was not,
Mm-hmm.
that was grooming. I went from that situation to being pimped by another man, because now, because I wasn't healed yet, I'm still carrying the residue of what I came out of. So this new man recognized it and exploited that. And so what started out as a
Wow.
business relationship became a debtor relationship, where he held a debt over my head, where he gave me a business loan. Um, that's technically what it was. He gave me a business loan, and then he held that debt over my head and forced me into prostitution to pay it off. He became abusive, and it was just this environment where he was playing with my emotions, making me feel once again as if there was this lifestyle that I could attain. He drove the fancy car. He had the lifestyle, and I had also just came out of this situation. But
Wow.
in between these two men, I had dated a celebrity, and so I had become exposed to the glamorous life, getting your clothes tailor made, going from show to show, flying from state to state, exposure all over the world. And then when that didn't work out, now I'm back to being on welfare. So this
Wow.
now opened up the door for another person to exploit that and say, I can give you the world,
What
but
was
you
the
have to
business?
do
What
this.
was this business that you were needed a loan for?
So without going into detail, because that's for the next book,
I got you. I
because
got
I
you.
didn't get a chance to go into that detail in Stripped and in Trapped, because with Stripped and Trapped, I dealt mostly with the human trafficking piece that's more unfamiliar. The
Okay.
sex trafficking, I didn't really go into that much detail. But the
Okay.
business loan that he held over my head, it really was like I tried to get into like the entertainment business, in the sense of like putting on shows, comedy
Promotion.
shows,
Yeah.
Yeah, comedy show promotion, entertainment promotion, and all of that stuff. And those that knew me back then, they knew that brief period of time where I was trying to do. I had this hustler mentality because from the age of 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, I had been introduced to that.
I see.
So trying to do it legally, I'm out here hustling. I'm doing what I can do. And he gave me a business loan to help in that business, in that promotion business. And so in that world, of course, I was exposed to different celebrities. I was exposed to different people with, that was on MTV or whatever, BET or whatever. Like I just exposed to these different people, and he exploited that longing once again to just get put on, to want to get out of poverty, to have the lifestyle that finally I think I can finally have and be my own person, so to speak. But no, I wound up right back in an unhealthy situation.
Wow.
And what he did was, instead, like the again, I'll go into the detail in the book. It's a lot of detail to unpack. But once he held that debt over my head, he made me feel as if I could never repay it. It almost got to the point where, again, once a pimp or once a manipulator gets into your head, once they have your mind, everything else follows. Like after that, everything else is easy. He started making me feel as if this was something that we're doing together, like it's me and you against the world. And so it was my job to be his bottom chick, to help build his stable, to get him other women, and I was going to be this person that was in charge. And it reminded me a lot of, like, because back then, I don't know how many people I'm dating myself, but I don't know how many of y'all familiar with the Mac, Goldie and all of that whole concept, that whole lifestyle. He was building this idea in my mind that, he was a type of Goldie. Like he was the one that everybody wanted. And if you could be chosen by somebody like him, it really spoke to your value. It spoke to your worth. And so again, this spirit of rejection that's following me, I'm starting to feel like I'm that chick. Okay, yeah, okay, even though he's forcing me to do this, I can own this. I can get on a stage and I can make money. And even though I got to hand it all over to him, I'm making the money. Even though I'm putting my life in danger, I'm making all of this. These men want me. And so I started to get caught up in that life, thinking this is how you survive. You flip it on them. You start to enjoy it. You start to make it or own it, so to speak. So now it doesn't feel like they're forcing you to do it, but you're working like as a business, as almost like a business partner. And when I tell you, again, I don't have the time to go into detail, but when the light bulb went off and I realized, like, chick, you are being pimped. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Like, do you realize what's happening to you? You're willingly handing over all of this money. I mean, stacks and stacks tied in rubber bands. You're handing this over to a man who is not even putting his life at risk. You're the one out there. You're the one that could be beaten up, robbed, killed, but you're handing him all. That is not a mentally healthy woman who will do that and willingly hand over all of that money to another man. That's not someone in their right mind.
So you just had this epiphany out of nowhere, almost, that, like, when you woke up, like, the light went on, like, what are you doing? Did it happen just like that?
It was sort of like that. Okay. I had gotten into my mom had gotten sick. And then she had passed away. So I was going through that trauma, and I got into a car accident, and the settlement money came, because it wasn't my fault. The settlement money came, and when the settlement money came, I foolishly told him about it. And he said, "Ma, I'm gonna need that." I'm gonna need that. I was like, this ain't from stripping. This ain't from getting, this ain't from working. This ain't from this my money. And he was like, "Nah, I'm gonna need that." And when I, like, between that and the physical abuse, I was like, this man, you being pimped. This is not you. Y'all not in this together. He's using you. And so what I did was I had to go through drastic measures. I changed my phone number. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment with my kids. I moved from this nice apartment to a 1 bedroom. I gave the boys the bedroom. I was sleeping on a futon in the living room. I changed everything. I sold my truck. I wound up getting another car. I went completely under the radar. And that's how I was able to get away from him. I literally had to change my location and go off the grid. And I got away from him because I realized then, like, this is not going to stop. This is only going to get worse. This person is controlling you. They're using you, and they're going to try to bleed you for everything you have. And they're going to continue to do it as long as you allow it. What it was like, I had the epiphany of like the prodigal son. Like, why am I here with the pigs? Even though I might have to scale back, I might have to downsize, but it's almost, I felt, and in that moment, I remember I started to develop wisdom. I said, this is God pulling the arrow back. You might have to go backwards a little bit, but when you get shot in the right direction, the further you go back, the further you're going to go. And I had to draw all the way back, and God put me in the dark. And I started to get, I'm preaching. I started to get anointed in dark places. I started to get anointed in those places where God was literally hiding me from the enemy. And that's when I started going to church. I started going to Bible study. I joined, that's when I started going to Calvary Temple Christian Center under Bishop Thompson. I remember when I first walked into, not first, but one of the first times walking into the church, Mother B, who was there at the time, she was like, there's a young lady I need you to help. And she's a dancer, but I need you to minister to her. Now I'm thinking, like, don't nobody know my lifestyle. Don't nobody know what I just came out of. But she picked up on the fact that there was something in me that could help this young lady. And so it was stuff like that like I started getting these opportunities to minister when I wasn't even a minister. And anyway, so without going into all of that detail, that was how I got out of that pimp situation to where I was being sex trafficked. And at the time, now get it, at the time, I didn't even know it was sex trafficking. It wasn't until I was like 36 years old that like 38, that I realized that that's what it was.
Wow. So now you did some time. You said you were arrested. You did some time in jail.
Yeah, I did.
Woo. Okay. So I don't.
I did. Because again, when you try to get past things like when you just get through things and get past them, but you don't work on yourself, you might get out of it, but you don't get away from it. Okay. It's like you get past it, but you don't really deal with it. And if you don't deal with stuff is going to deal with you. It's going to catch up to you. And I was just moving on, thinking life is just going to get greater and greater. But every time I got a little bit further past things would catch up to me, and those old habits would resurface. And so because I had that hustler mentality, I didn't feel comfortable being on welfare too long. So I started boosting. Like it was a full-time job. Like it's so not funny. But when you get
boosting is stealing, right? It's stealing.
When you stealing stuff and selling it.
Okay.
When you stealing stuff and selling it, you realize it, not even realize, but once you start to feel like it's that easy, you get addicted to it. Okay. And you start to you get used to or you get accustomed to and addicted to cutting corners. You get addicted to working the system. And so when you have that mentality, everything is an opportunity for you to get over. And so whether it's cheating the unemployment system, getting a job, going on unemployment, trying to get another job, collect unemployment at the same time, whether it's going into a store, stealing the stuff and selling it, whether it's you using some dude to get money to go buy yourself something or eat at nice restaurant, you always this getting over mentality. And that's what got me caught out boosting. And I got so into it that I really felt I had it down to a science to where I just got sloppy and wound up getting caught. And then the next thing you know, they're like, look, you gonna do some jail time because we're not just gonna keep slapping you on the wrist. You going to jail. Wow. And I'm like, wait, what? I can't go to jail. I can't, no. But it was the best. When I tell you, I don't even say it lightly. I say this in all sincerity. It was the best thing that could have happened to me. Because when I tell you, I know that jail is not for me. and you could not convince me to break the law at this point in my life. Not even that I want to, but there's no way, there's nothing in me that got, it was like God dealt with me in that prison to where it was like, slow down. I'm gonna slow you down long enough, and I'm gonna bring everything to a halt so I can start to deal with you and your issues. And I had to deal with myself in that prison.
Wow. So now, and I can see it, right? Because and everything you're saying, it all makes sense. It's just that the smaller problem at the little girl, the little Mary, that whole thing kind of perpetuated all through your life, like that whole vicious cycle of the same kind of behaviors from the time that you were trying to get attention from the boys. Now you got this attention from this man. Now that puts you in a certain limelight. That's what you wanted. Even as a little girl, you got that because this man is putting you on, all that stuff. And then you started hustling and you wanted to be the star, and you've seen these stars and you're being flown all over the place. And now here it is that you're leaving all that behind, but because you ran into a snag, you got to figure out how to keep that game going. So you started stealing, you started hustling, right? And you were like not realizing that life was coming to get you. It was bringing you back, right? Because that's one of the things I've noticed. I've dealt with a lot of people who been in and out of incarceration, and it's hard for them to see the manipulation of their own issue. Like they're doing it to themselves, right? They don't even realize, but they think that's just a way of life because they've been so conditioned to trying to always get over. Like the rules don't apply to you, right?
Exactly.
Like so we don't have to work. Yeah, you go ahead and I can do this. I know how to get over. You've been taught, you've been trained, right? From all those experiences, and now here it is, boom, it shows up at your doorstep. Now you're in prison, and now you realize the Lord's like, this is what now I'm gonna get you. This is where it's going to stop. This is
where it stops, and this is where it starts. Ministry literally started for me in prison. Like it was the first time I shared my testimony. Like I was exposed to being able to like try to encourage women here and there, but I had never opened up and shared my story outside of a counseling session, outside of a therapeutic environment. And so my first day in lockup, I told my testimony to a young lady. And she shared with me afterwards. Now this girl looked hard. She was in prison already. And she was just coming to court to hear her case heard because she was going through a trial. So we're in lockup together. This is me coming in. This is her just, I had gotten sentenced or whatever, and I was sent downstairs into lockup. She was waiting to be heard by the judge. So it's like we came together at just the right moment. And when I shared, I just felt led to tell her because she asked me the question that everybody gets asked in prison is what you here for? And I started to tell her my story from my childhood up until that point. And she said, oh my goodness. She was like, because I told her, I said, my pastor told me there's somebody I'm supposed to meet in here and I'm going to minister to them. She was like, I'm the one you were supposed to minister to. She lifted up her head and she showed me this scar on her neck.
Wow.
She said, you told me how you tried to kill, you tried to unalive yourself all of those times. She said, I wanted to die so bad, I slit my throat from ear to ear. And she had this scar that went there. And she said, I went through everything that you said you went through. Wow. And she was like, we were supposed to meet. And so that was the first time that I shared my testimony in a way that wasn't just, like I said, in a therapeutic session or whatever. This was peer to peer, so to speak. And I went into prison with this mindset of every person that I meet, I'm going to try to make an impact. I started teaching Bible studies in prison. I mean, because we were able to go to chapel, was what they call it, where the people come in, the pastors and, the churches come in and they have church. But some days they wouldn't show up. And so we would be waiting at the gate, waiting for the band to come pick us up to take us to church. And sometimes it wouldn't show up. So we would go shuffle back into this little room, and I would start to open up the Bible and just show them the scriptures that I knew. And that was like the start of ministry for me in prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now this is you're listen. I know we have there's so much more, but I want to start because I know there's some things that I want to start talking about that recovery, right? Because
Yeah.
now you are now you are now the one ministering, right? You're the one that's leading. You're the one that's cultivating, right? You're rescuing people from the fire that you just escaped,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're in prison now. You're doing Bible studies, and you starting to see the trajectory of where God is taking you with your story. Let's talk about what happened after prison. You came out of prison. What? Let's talk about that journey.
So while I was in prison, I was journaling, and God gave me this idea for a nonprofit.
Mhm.
And it was really to help young girls to overcome the traumas that I had experienced, so that they don't have to continue to deal with the outcome of that, or the repercussions, that they
Wow.
can actually, start to heal early on, rather than having this later in life epiphany. And so I started this nonprofit, and I started out at Central High School with an
How many
after.
years? How many years did you do in prison? I just want how long? How
Oh,
long
I
were you
didn't
in
do
prison?
years, thank God. Oh my
Okay.
goodness. I
How long were
can't
you
do
in?
that.
How long were you in prison?
I was in prison for 50 days. I was sentenced to
Okay,
6 months,
that's
and
all
then
it
I was
took.
able to get out after 50 days.
That's all it took. Amen. Let's go.
Yes,
Okay.
thank God. And when I tell you, I was so, because I was like, look, I don't want to do not one more day. Because some of the women that I met, they were career criminals, and they were used to going in and out of prison. Matter of fact, some of them would purposely go to prison during the winter,
Mm,
because it was where they knew they didn't have to three hots and a cot. Like they
mhm,
knew, like they could have a safe place
mhm,
to go during the winter. And this one lady that I met named Sarah, she was a person that was in and out of prison almost all her adult life. And she told me, we were getting released on the same day. And while we were on the bus going back to meet our parole officer, she said, I'm never going back. I'm never
mm,
going back. And I started to pick her up. I would bring her to because we had the same parole officer. I would pick her up to go to our appointments. I would take her to food pantries to get food. I would bring her to church. Like, she was just a person I supported outside. Like, she was that first person that God gave me to, like, say, okay, look, now from a healed place, you're going to be able to help other women come
mm,
out. And
mm.
so shortly after that, unfortunately, Sarah passed away.
Oh,
Um, but she had a heart attack. But she gave her life to Christ. Number one.
amen. Thank God. Right.
Yes. She started singing it, like she was really like she was searching. She was really trying to get to that place where she was like finally like free. And she
Mm,
and she got free. She really
amen.
did. So there was that experience, but I said I want to help younger girls. I want them to have to never go into places like this. I want to help them before they get to
Mm,
these destructive behaviors. I want to reach them before they meet the 36-year-old man. I want to prepare them for, And so I started this after school program, and teaching them life skills, etiquette, self-esteem building.
hmm.
And I knew of Pastor Michonne White Bernard, but I didn't know her personally. But I was like, it's something about her poise, her sophistication, the class. I'm gonna reach out to her and see if she'll help me teach these young women how to
Mhm.
have etiquette. And so she said yes, and I was like, okay, all right, good. I met this doctor who was a naturopathic physician, and so she came and taught them about self-esteem, and to expose them to a different lifestyle of taking better care of their
Mm,
bodies. And so anyway, we developed, me and these two women, we developed this after school program. Shout out to Pastor Michonne. That was the beginning of our connection.
mhm,
But it was just the Lord leading, because I didn't know her personally, but I just knew. I said it's something about her. So then I also started Project Prom. And to make a long story short, it was dressing girls from head to toe for prom that were underprivileged,
mm,
boys, and that we wound up getting them tuxedos and haircuts and all of that good stuff. And then the final component of that was scholarships in my mom's name, because
wow.
I was just really big on legacy and having her name, just remembered. And so we wound up to this date. I think we're at like almost 50 scholarships that we've awarded. Most
Wow.
most of them went to Bridgeport schools, so Central, Bassick, Harding, Bullard Havens. So anyway, I did all of that through my nonprofit, And then I started to go back to my heart, which was missions work, because since a little girl, I always dreamed of being a missionary.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into, like, getting back into the community work, getting involved with a lot of outreach and things like that locally. But I knew one day I wanted to do something on a global scale. But I was also in school at the time, because I said, I'm going to stop this hustler mentality of trying to get out of poverty, because education is my key out of poverty, not hustling, like not trying to cut corners, not trying to find a way to work a system,
Mm-hmm.
but being educated is going to get me out of poverty. And so I went back to school, and to make a long story short, I just kept going. Even if it was just one course a semester, I kept going. And I went straight from undergrad into law school. While I was in law school, I wrote my first book. I was like, I'm bent on telling my story. This is going to empower women. It's going to empower young
Mm-hmm.
people. I wrote 3 books while I was in law school.
Wow.
My
Wow.
husband was very, supportive and helping me to really just navigate that time to be able to work in ministry, but also go to law school and do all these extra things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. You're supposed to just focus on school, but God gave me this grace to do all of that. So then fast forward, I graduate from law school, and now I got my past, because I'm still a woman with a past. Yeah, I'm redeeming myself. Yes, I'm doing all of these great things. Yes, I've turned away from that lifestyle, but I still have these labels. I
Mm.
still have the label of prisoner. I still have the label of an ex-con, so to speak. I
Mm.
still have this rap sheet. I still have these things that are following me. So I was like, okay, I'm in law school, but I'm graduating from law school, but who's gonna hire me as a lawyer with this criminal record? Who,
Mm.
if I get, like, number one, I gotta get to pass the bar. Like, once I pass the bar, who is going to license me as a person
Mm.
with a criminal record? God is so good, because when I tell you, every
Wow.
label that followed me through my life, he started to strip those labels away.
Awesome.
Because when I first applied to my first job, without even going into the details of how all of that happened, I was offered every position I applied to with disclosing my record up front.
Wow.
Like, because I wouldn't even wait for them to get the record and
You're
at
gonna
the
tell you all
background.
yourself.
I got to tell you up front, because I've had so many throughout my lifetime. I've had so many job offers rescinded that it's like you're put in handcuffs all over again.
Mm.
So this time around, I said, mm-mm. If this is what God has for me, I'm going to disclose up front. And what
Mm.
happens, and the doors that open is going to be the doors that God wants to open for me. And I was offered every position.
Wow.
Now, when it came time for me to get admitted to the bar, when I went through what they call the character and fitness investigation, by the time we finished that interview, we were all in tears. And they were
Wow.
like, we would be happy to, like, they were like, we can't tell you what the outcome is, but one of the women, she said, I cannot wait to work with you.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I got admitted to the bar, got my license,
Wow. Wow.
and then on top of that, I got my full pardon a couple of years ago.
Oh,
So now
wow.
I never have to check that box again.
Wow.
Aside from me openly talking about my past, like, I never have to disclose that I ever
Oh
had
my
any criminal
God. Look
history.
at God. Look at this.
When I tell you God will allow you to outlive those labels, like, I'm a living witness to
Mm.
how he will strip you of all of those labels that have seemed like they've just become such an ingrained a part of your identity. God will uproot all of that. He will lay an axe to that root, and really, there's no
Mm.
sign of it. People look at me. There's, like, you will not look at me and say she been to prison.
Nope.
Nobody would look at me and say, yeah, she was a prostitute. Nobody would look at me and think, oh
Mm.
yeah, she's got a rap sheet or she sold drugs. Like, no, I do not have any residue or any resemblance of what
Wow.
I've gone through.
You
That's
do
the
not.
power of God.
Yeah, you do not. And it is absolutely amazing. It's a miracle. Woo,
That's
man.
God right there.
That's God.
I'm grateful, because out of everything that I went through, because I haven't even tapped into a lot of the things that I've gone through, but it almost seemed like over the years, I used to wonder, like, how much can one person go through? Like,
Mm.
how much can one person go, like, how much, like, why am I going through so much? And I remember it got to the point where I was just like, how am I still even able to smile? Like, I couldn't figure it out. And now I know what it is. Like, God used me as a poster girl for his grace.
I'm sure.
Like I am that person that can be a billboard that can say, like, look at what you can make it out of. Like, look at you, if you can overcome this, this is what's on the other side of success. Like, this is what's on the other side of that trauma. Like, you can make it out and not look like what you've been through, because sometimes the hardness of life can show up. You can see it on some people. And I'm just so grateful that the biggest miracle is that I can still smile and have joy in my life and not feel bitter and resentment towards men, or feel bitterness towards life. To still have a smile, to still have joy, to still have hope, to still look forward to the future and not wonder, like, when is the next bad thing going to happen? But now it's like, what's the next thing that God is going to do?
Wow.
That to me is just the power of God. I'm just grateful. Like, I live a life of gratitude because I know where I could be.
And what's amazing about, I think about the 3 Hebrew boys, right? And the Bible talks about how they went in the fiery furnace,
right?
And they came out and their clothes were not singed. There was no smoke on them. You could not tell that they spent the night in a fiery furnace, which was increased 7 times. It was much worse than it should have been. And they still came out unsinged. The people who put them in there died. Right. But here it is. You don't even look like you've been through what you've been through. And that's just how
what you said is so powerful, because if I was to show you pictures of the people that inflicted the pain, if I was to show you what they look like today and what they're dealing with today, when I tell you, I can feel the torment. Like, I can see they're not. There's an emptiness. There's a void that's like there's constantly chasing, and to see like that they're still tormented. And I truly know what it's like to forgive your enemies, to forgive those who've done wrong to you, because I pray for them. I pray for their salvation. I pray that God will heal them, because nobody deserves that level of torment. And I started to understand that everybody has a story. That they didn't just wake up one day and decide to be evil. They didn't just wake up one day and decide to abuse women, or to use women, or to groom women, or to groom girls, or to become a pedophile. It just didn't start one day. Something happened to them along the way that traumatized them, that caused them to want to do damage to others. But there's still something on the inside that's not healed. And so when I genuinely pray for them, it's because I see the torment. It's like that's no way to live. And on top of that, it's like there's something in them that they're constantly chasing, this need to destroy everything else around them, because that's the only thing that gives them some sense of satisfaction, but they're never satisfied.
And the crazy thing is, the wonderful thing about that is that's how you can tell you're really healed and restored, because you can pray for those who inflicted this pain on you.
And thank God for that, because I know the opposite feeling. I knew I went years being bitter. I went years saying, Lord, get them. I went years praying for them, saying, Lord, deal with them, kill them, get them, wipe them off the face of this, those kind of prayers, thinking that's how you pray for your enemies. It's like one day God showed me, like, until you get to the place where you can truly pray for them, you're still in bondage. You're still in prison. Like, you're still locked up with them. You're still in that place where you're still right there. You're still re-traumatizing yourself over and over again every time you have anger towards this person who did this to you. But when I tell you, the moment I got free and I was able to see them as a human being, as a person who is worthy of redemption, as a person who Christ would love to bring to a place of repentance, like, as a person who's deserving of God's forgiveness and his grace just as much as I was, I started to realize, like, everybody has a story. And that healing to me was another wave. And I'm like, okay, this is what it's like to really be healed. I thought I was past it, but to get to this place, it's a whole nother level of freedom. Wow. Because it's like you willingly take off those chains and that bondage. Because when you hold something over someone else's head, you're locking yourself, you're binding yourself to them so that you can hold something over them. So it's like you stooping down to their level and you're right there in the mud with them. And until you come up and come higher and you're able to really see them as a person, not as a predator. Yes, they have predatory ways. Yes, they did some damage. No, it does not take away from the harm that was done. No, it does not excuse them of their behavior, but they're still worthy of forgiveness. And we all want to get, we as people who have the heart and the mind of Christ, we want people to get to that place of healing. We don't want to see people bound and tormented.
That's right.
So yeah, that to me, that's nothing but the goodness of God, because it took me a while to get there.
That's rich. That is so rich, because I think that's the essence or the epitome of Christianity, right? To forgive and have such a forgiving heart, to where you now, like Paul said, there go I, but for the
Right,
grace of God, right? And
right,
he said that I was a chief of I was a chief among sinners, right? So when we can see ourselves in that, and pray earnestly and fervently for those people that have done these wrongs to us, that's how you know you've been delivered. That's how you know that you are set free. I want to say this, and this is one of the things that I wanted to bring out, because God has blessed you, like with all your past, with all that backdrop, right? The babies, a lot of our single women struggle with, why can't I find a husband? Why am I not good enough? And you got all these people telling, well, if you did this and you did that and you got these kids and nobody gonna marry you with no kids and all this other stuff. But you, right? We heard your story, and the Lord bless you with an amazing husband. I mean, that's my brother. I'm gonna talk Joe. That's my man. I got it. Yeah, so, but God has blessed you with listen, and not a slouch. This is a caliber dude, right? He's a caliber, upstanding brother.
yeah.
And so talk a little bit about that. How'd that come together? Because that's a blessing. That's a blessing.
It is a blessing.
Mhm.
And he was the one who encouraged me to share my story. Like, he
Wow.
encouraged me to open up and tell it. And because at first I was afraid of how I was going to make him look. I'm like, who is going to accept you having a first lady who used to be in the streets?
I
Like,
don't even care.
who is going to accept you? Who's going to accept the first lady that has all of this drama and all this baggage in her past? And I thought it would be a blemish on him. I thought it would be an embarrassment to the ministry. I thought it would just bring too much. I don't know. I just thought it was just too much. Like, I got this story. I hadn't shared my story openly yet. I hadn't wrote any books yet when we first got married. So he was like, "No, you need to tell it and tell everything, because there's gonna be women that need to hear your story. People need to know people are going through real stuff. It's like, how do you know I can be healed if I've never had to go, if you've never been healed before? Like, how do you know God is a healer when you haven't experienced it, for yourself? Like, you can know it intellectually, but do you really know what it feels like? Do you really know the possibilities? Do you really know what you can come out of? And I was able to help people to see that, to be that personification of God's healing in action.
Mhm.
And so he encouraged me. And so I want to just tell, like, all the single women, all of the women, all the single ladies. So all the single women, it's still, you're not, again, outliving the labels. You're not defined by your role
That's
as
right.
a mother. Whether, I don't care. You could have 5 kids, you can have 4 kids like my mom did. My mom had 4 kids. None of us have the same fathers. But that really didn't, it didn't even click that there was anything that was an issue with that. It wasn't
Mhm.
until, you start to get around people who are immature, who try to hold things like that over your head, or try to make it seem as if that was somehow this really horrible thing. No, she had relationships that just didn't work out. But at the same time, she did a wonderful job raising her kids, and she never had trouble finding another man. Now, I'm not saying that they were healthy relationships. They weren't all healthy relationships, but I've seen it time and time again. I've seen it in my own life. Your past does not define who you are.
Mm.
What you've gone through, how many kids you have, what you've done in your past, what your personality was like, what type of character you had, whether you lacked integrity coming up and you turn your life around, whatever the case might be. Use this time to really work on you and allow God to heal you, because I'm telling you, the right person is not going to hold those things against you. And if there's somebody that comes along that does, they're not the person for you. If they're looking at your past and judging you for that, that's not somebody who you want to be in a partnership with over the course of your life, because marriage is you're partnering with another person, and you're bringing two lives together, and you're blending all of these things together, and you're going to have all types of issues to sort out. You don't want someone looking at you and judging you and condemning you. That's abuse. That's an abusive relationship. And if you have someone like that and you're constantly trying to prove your worth, that's a sign that this is not the person God has for you.
Amen.
But there is someone who will
That's
see
right.
your value and see your worth, but you got to see it first. You have to do the work for yourself first. And I wish that I had took more time to get more healed before I got married. But at the same time, God will give you that space to grow. Like he will give you that room. Like, he will work with you. If you move too soon, if you move too fast, he will give you that grace in it. So I just suggest to every person, every woman, please do the work on yourself. Get yourself spiritually stable, get yourself mentally stable, emotionally stable, get healed, and do that work on yourself so that when you come together with the person that's meant for you,
That's right.
and they are going to value you, you will have valued yourself, and you guys will come together in that right mindset to
That's right.
work together in that.
That's awesome, because I think out of all that you went through, and like you said, there are some men who are not able to handle the level that that our brother Apostle Holmes, because he knows who he is, right? And he knows, and he can see who you are. He can see your value and appreciate it. And then it's an assignment, right? Because
Yeah.
I believe that God puts the couples together for purpose, for
Right.
assignment, right? To enable, to help, to strengthen, to encourage you to fulfill your destiny while they're fulfilling theirs, right?
Right.
So I really celebrate that, because a lot of I talk, women all the time, and they're struggling with the whole, well, they're saying this about men now, and men don't. I said, listen, prepare yourself to be a wife. Prepare you, because when it's time, whatever God has for you, if it requires a man, he's got that man for you. And if the
Right.
one that he gave a shot to be yours, and he messed it up, guess what? God's got somebody right behind him, because
That's right.
God makes people. God
Yep.
makes people. I mean, who you like when you think about that, right? He makes human beings. So what are you talking about, right?
Right.
So I really wanted that to come across, because I know a lot of our young ladies are feeling hopeless in these hours, right? And they're being challenged with all the social media and what they see online, all this other nonsense. Don't believe any of that.
Right. Don't
Lock
believe
into
hype.
lock into what you're called to do, and
Mhm.
God will send you someone to help. Like, I know that you got a school overseas somewhere, right? Aren't you? They have a
Yes. Yes.
building a
So we
school or
have a
something.
school. Yep. The Women's Entrepreneurship Center in Malawi. It's in
Hmm.
East Africa.
Wow.
Women learn tailoring skills. They have a beauty school, a baking school. They learn beading and crafting and all of that stuff. And everything that they make and everything that they do, they earn money for themselves. So
Wow.
it's building an economy over there. And in that village, the chief of the village gave us the land. He said, if you want to build the school on it, you can clear it out. And he gifted us the land. We gave him a donation, but at the same time, the young lady that I partner with over there, she lives in Malawi. She's a Malawian. Lindsay, she's awesome. She's amazing. She has her own
Mm.
nonprofit organization, the Sprout Foundation. And so we came together in partnership to make this happen. And so we have the school, and then also because it's about economic sustainability, but also rescuing these women out of situations like drug abuse, human
Mm.
trafficking, childhood marriages, rescue them out of abusive relationships, gender-based violence. And so we have that. And then in India, we have two churches. Pastor Krupa is the pastor there of both of the campuses. And so we have Triumph
Wow.
International Ministries at those two locations in Mandapeta, India. And then we have finally my favorite country in the world. I shouldn't say that because, Lindsay, like I love Malawi, I really do, but
Okay.
Peru is my first love. So we have our work that we do in Peru with the kids there and the women
Wow.
there. And so I
Wow.
was able to have my book translated into Spanish so that we could
Wow.
distribute it in South America and work with the churches in Peru and Ecuador, And so Pastor Albert and his lovely wife, Pastor Amelia, they're amazing. We usually partner with their church to do different things. And Minister Cesar, who is my ministry partner in Peru, he always makes it happen. Like we just do amazing work with the kids. And
Wow.
so that is our three continents: Africa, Asia, and South America. I guess four, because we have the U.S., North America. So we got North America, South America, Africa, and Asia, where different things are going. So we gotta conquer Europe. We gotta go into Europe now. But I don't know if that's what the Lord says. Maybe there'll be something that we do in Europe. But right
Wow.
now we're in those different regions, and I love it.
Now, who knew that little girl that was the devil thought he had her
He thought.
is doing global work right out of this state of Connecticut? Oh my God. Oh my God. Who knew? Who knew, right? Who
Yeah.
knew?
Who knew? I
So
would have
so,
never guessed.
so tell us about the books. Tell us about the books.
So the books, I feel like my shirt is all discombobulated.
Do
But
you have a book to show us where to get it?
oh no, I don't have one right next to me. But it's
Okay.
okay
Okay.
because what I'll do is I'll have somebody post it in the comments. I guess maybe Pastor Shamika can post it in the comments. But I have a few. I have I think I'm on like book 17 now.
Wow.
But the main books are my memoirs. So there's Trapped in Plain Sight, The Unfamiliar Face of Human Trafficking. There is Stripped, A Journey from Rejection to Redemption. And also, I have the Outlive the Label series. So there's Outlive the Labels volumes 1 through 5. So that's where I encourage different people to come together and tell their stories. And it's a collection of different people who came together and became co-authors. All of them became bestsellers, some international bestsellers. Volume 4 is all women from different parts of Africa. So from
Mm.
whether they're in South Africa or Nigeria, Ghana, Malawi, uh, all different parts. There's so many different regions that they're from. There's so many different countries, and that book is filled with their stories. They all became authors and contributed to that book. So I think I'll do a volume 6, maybe. I think I want to do a teen edition to have young girls tell their story,
Mm.
and then I want to have one that's about breaking generational poverty, about outliving the labels. So stay tuned for that. And then I'm working on a children's book called Agents of Light. The illustrator is almost done. It's about 5 kids from different regions that have different programs in. So we have
Wow.
a
Wow.
Malawian boy, an Indian girl. We have a Peruvian child and 2 from the U.S. that are inspired by 2 of the kids from the church from Triumph, and they come together to pray for people all over the world, and so they get their superpowers from God, and so they all have different gifts, different fruits of the spirit that they exhibit, and so God shows them their purpose, and coming together
Wow.
in prayer. So I'm working on that. It's called Agents of Light.
Okay.
um yeah, the power of the superpower of prayer. And so that's exciting because I want to venture out into helping the kids more with help understanding their purpose from an early age.
Wow. Wow. So how can all your books, are they on Amazon, or how can they get your books? Or
Amazon, or you can go to my website,
okay.
marykhomes.com.
All right.
So
So
Mary Kay
somebody
Homes,
put that in the chat. MaryKHomes.com.
yes. So you
Okay.
can, but if you search my name on Amazon, it'll come up. But it's better, usually, you'll get more. I'm able to sign your book if you order it through my website,
Okay.
marykhomes.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And how can they find you? Where are you located on social media? Like, what's your tag and all that kind of good stuff?
So all social media is Hear Mary Speak, whether it's X, formerly known as Twitter,
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook. It's Hear Mary Speak.
Okay. Wow. Wow. You have any engagements, things that are coming up that people can come and hear you speak, testimonies that you're going to be sharing? Anything that
I
I
I do. I just oh,
can't remember right now?
Pastor Shamika's not on. She must be asleep. But
Yeah.
but if she was on, she could tell you. She's my executive assistant.
Okay.
With my brother and everything, and we just lost another family member last night.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Sadly, it's been a whirlwind. So I know I have some things on the calendar. I just can't think of it off the top of my head right
Okay.
now.
But they can find you. They got some people have posted your name in the chat, marykhomes.com. So that's in there. Oh, there she is. Is that your administrator, Shaniqua Thomas?
Oh, Shaniqua. Okay, so Shaniqua, thank you so much for stepping in.
Okay.
Yes. But yes, Shaniqua was amazing.
Okay.
Shout out
Awesome.
to her and Love Thy Neighbor, her nonprofit that she has. She does amazing things in Waterbury.
Awesome.
Shameless plug.
Okay. So what's the name of your ministry? You and your pastor, your husband pastors, Triumphant. Tell us a little about where they can find
Yeah.
your ministry.
Triumph Christian Center in Waterbury, Connecticut, 127 Scott Road. It is in Waterbury, right over. If you're familiar with the Waterbury area, it's in a really good location. Like it's right on and off the highway.
Yep.
So 127 Scott Road, Waterbury, Connecticut. And you can find us online at triumphnow.org.
Amen. Great pastor, great preacher. My brother Apostle Terry Holmes is a great teacher. They're great. They're a dynamic duo. Have a great ministry, a loving ministry. We fellowship there, been there, and enjoyed ourselves. So if you're looking for a ministry, it's a great place to go. They'll love you. They're down to earth, as you know, and they love the people of God, and they have a real heart for the kingdom of God. Now are you a pastor? Because I want to make sure I get this right. Are you a pastor? What's that the church title? I know you're an
Yes,
attorney, but
yeah, I'm one of the pastors there
okay.
at the church, supporting my husband. So, and yes, I'm an attorney as well.
Mhm.
I did, yeah, I'm more. God told me a few years ago, focus on being a great lawyer. So He had me pull back from ministry a little bit
Okay.
and focus on being a great lawyer, and I did just that, and the doors just started to open, and
Awesome.
I just recently got a promotion on my
Well, okay,
job.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm moving up in the world, and so God has been blessing through that
Wow.
obedience. So
Awesome.
I'm grateful
Awesome.
for that.
So listen, thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Attorney
Thank you.
Holmes. Thank you so much for this opportunity to listen to your story. I have I'm completely flabbergasted at what I've heard, and trust me, the respect level just went from 10,000 to 20 million thousand for you and for what you've accomplished.
I'm
Oftentimes it's easy to kind of be up and stay up, but it's hard when you're down and get up, right? So the real
yeah,
glory is coming through all that you come through, and look at you now. Look at what God is doing, and He's not done.
he's not
He is
done.
not
There's
done,
more. There is
and there
more.
there is so much more, and even there's more to. We couldn't even cover everything, so that's why we encourage you, go buy her books, support her ministry, everything you're doing, everything you do toward this woman of God. You can rest assured it's impacting someone's life. I mean, everything you do, whether you sow, whether you give her, cash app, bless her. I don't know if you want to put your cash app or put your ministry app in here, but everything you do, we encourage that to be a blessing to her, because she's going to touch someone's life with whatever you do. Buy a book, it's going to bless someone's life. Tell somebody about her life, it's going to bless someone's life.
Thank
So we really want you to support her and get behind this woman of God. And listen, and don't listen to people who trying to keep labels up, because the reason
you.
why they do that is because they don't have anything else better to do. So you need to be hook up with somebody who's about moving forward, right?
Amen.
Who's about progressing and advancing.
Yes.
People who stay in the graveyard and trying to chase dead bodies and all that crap, let them play in the dirt. Let
Right.
them do that. That's what kids will do. But when somebody's growing up and pushing forward, you want to get on that,
Yes.
because trust me, she's going places, y'all. This you sleep if you want to. She's going places, and again, what she has done hasn't been happy. I think she's a part of helping. I'm talking about you like you're not even here, but like she's helped people get out of prison. I think she was helping Vance
Ben
at one
Jones.
time, Van Jones, right? So
Yeah.
so there's a lot of things that she didn't even cover tonight. But I want you, and most importantly, if you whatever you do, pray for her, that God will cover her, that God will protect her family, her husband, her children, that God will cover them, because they are doing real kingdom work. And when people are doing real kingdom work, the enemy is really mad. And so we want to make sure we cover her in prayer, and continue to uphold her as God advances her in the kingdom of God. Thank you for spending time with us tonight. I know it's been long, about 2 hours. But thank you. I can't say it enough. And to God be the glory. And if you want to reach out to her, you got a website. You know where her church is, right? So if you have any questions, stuff that you're going through, you might need advice. Trust me, she's reachable. She's touchable. She's not stuck up. She won't put you on no long list. She will get back to you. She'll get back to you.
That is true.
Amen.
Listen, God anointed me for dark places so he can bring me out and bring other people out too. I'm not selfish with this, you know. So let's do it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I'm honored. A 2-hour interview. I feel like I made it to the big time. So thank you.
Oh, you need to stop. Get out of here. Go kick rocks. No, it was, listen, it was rich. It was so rich. I'm really blessed by this. And I'm telling you, there's going to be more work for us to do, because the reason why we're doing this, because we're trying to show the world that Jesus still saves.
Come on.
Yeah. Right? That God still, like, whatever's going on in the church, you know, we get so distracted with all the negativity, but if you need to be rescued, he's still doing that.
Right.
If, you know, those of us that are in the church, we may have our issues, but God is still delivering. God is still God is still rescuing.
Listen, don't get me started, because we get so used to having church, and we get so used to preaching to each other and just exchanging members and recirculating, and everybody kind of going through the same circles. But you're so right. God is still saving. There's still people out there that need to be rescued. This is not just about us having good church, having a good time. And yes, there's a place for that. I love having some good church.
Me too.
I love praising God, worshiping God. But we still have to remember there's a work to be done. Like, we have to go out into all the world and preach the good news that he's still saving, the good news of salvation, the good news of redemption. Like, he is still rescuing. So, yeah.
I know. And like the reality is that, you know, you look at some people in the street will look at you when you're trying to tell them about the love of Christ, not realizing that you were right there with them. Like, that reality doesn't really hit a lot of them. Like, they really think that some of us just jumped out of a storybook. Right. But a lot of us have some real stuff that we've been through. And we're like, let me tell you about that. I mean, you might see my designer, whatever you think, my clothes together. But brother, baby girl, listen, let me tell you what it was really like. And then when they hear that, they're like, what, you? Yes, me. Right. How about them apples? And then now they can relate. Right now, they can see it in real time. It's not something on television. The miracle is standing right in front of you.
Yes.
And that's why this is the reason why we're doing this, is because the Lord wants the world to know that regardless of all the enemies trying to the shade or the stuff he's throwing on the church, there is still healing in the body of Christ. There is still deliverance in the body of Christ. Amen. And we are the example. You are the example, right? Amen. So thank you so much. I'm gonna let you go. I know it's late. God be praised. Have a good night. Please reach out to her, support her ministry. Thank you so much, Pastor Attorney Holmes. Thank you so much. And again, to God be praised. Thank you again. Have a good night, everybody. We're gonna do this again. Now, a little while, we give you some time, but we definitely gonna do this again. All right. God bless. All right.
God
be well.
Bless you.